You're listening to another episode. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
All right, everybody. How y'all doing today? Here at the home studio, we're going to talk about, are we being leveled with? Are we being told the straight truth here? We're going to be finding out. That's why you come to this show, by golly, to hear the truth. Is that why you come to this show, Taylor?
You know it, that and because you pay me.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, yeah. Well, the listeners are paid in wise insights and observations, so that's always a good thing.
Yes.
Anyway, now we're going to talk about some of the economic things that they're talking about. Also, I saw a clip. Ms. Harris talked about their southern border down here in Texas, and basically said, "What immigrant problem? And if we have it's Trump's fault." And I just said,
It's probably
I
one of
gotta
those
address
brilliant clips I've ever seen.
this.
Said no one ever.
He hadn't said no one ever. Well, it's frustrating and irritating. So that's why I entitled this "Don't Believe Your Lying Eyes," because the evidence is pretty clear. The evidence is very clear that our economy is in serious trouble. Yet Mr. Biden's about to take a little tour on our expense, talking to us about how great the economy's doing under his watch and all these great things he's doing. Hang on, I'm looking for something. Here it is. My water. Ugh, a little dry today. I might take a sinus medicine. And if things go haywire, I'll blame that. But anyway, the point is that you're hearing all this stuff about how great the economy is from the government, yet nobody is experiencing that in their real lives. Even those that are supportive of the president don't say that. And it's just, I get angry about these things. Last time I talked about this last Tuesday, I was pretty upset because of things that Biden was saying on 60 Minutes about he's trying to say, oh, inflation isn't a problem. It actually only went up an inch. And all these other ridiculous statements that are just patently untrue. And I hate being talked to like I'm five, that I don't know the difference between reality and a lie, which that is what it is. I'd hate being talked to like I'm too stupid for my own good, and I'm just supposed to accept any politician, what they have to say about an issue, and accept that because I happen to be on the same team as they are, some other rubbish as that. That's what really drives me nuts is people and politicians that think that I am not smart enough to catch on to their fabrications. And that's exactly what happened on Meet the Press Sunday morning with Vice President Harris, where she made some patently they're just lies. That's all it is. They're just untruths. And they're refuted by not just eyeball evidence, hence the name "Don't Believe Your Lying Eyes" as the title of this podcast, but also just by any statistical measure. And it just makes me mad. And I think this little tour that Mr. Biden's about to take on Air Force One, where he goes about the country and talks about how he's doing so great with the economy, is going to fall flat on its face. And it's also going to cause, I think, a backlash at the elections, because it makes it look like they're so out of touch that they can't understand the fact that prices are going up and the economy is slowing down. And also talk about something you may not think about very often, but the strong dollar and what it's doing to the world economy and what it's doing for our economy. So anyway, so let's just talk about our sponsors first, because I like their strong dollars. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the webpage at CrossFitBurleson.com. Check out the plans, the programs, the training regimens, whatnot. They have trainers and supervisors. It's well lit, well kept, clean, safe, secure. It's a good place to do your workout. So CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Also Shandy. Today is Shandy's birthday. And so say hello to Shandy on 817life.com page or on our personal page. It's Stogstill Group. I'm talking about something that is very close to coming to our show next Thursday, a week from Thursday, rather, the first Thursday in October. Shandy will be on and talk about the stock markets, and I'll be addressing some of that today, about how the market in the real estate is turned a pretty sudden turn to the right, so to speak. It's sharply downturning, but I'll get to that in a minute. But Shandy Stogstill can help you in these kind of markets because she's experienced. She's been through these before. She knows what's going on. So you need a experienced, licensed real estate agent to help you through this. So Shandy Stogstill Group will help you through that. Also, Otto at our place. I'll see you Thursday, or at least Ryan, I guess. No, you forgot our place there, but there it is. All right. Our Place Restaurant. Everybody knows Otto. I saw your post today. I agree with it, sir. Our Place Restaurant, a great place to do business. It's a great place to have a meal, a great place to relax. That's where I do my meetings with people for this show or other purposes. I like to have a cup of coffee, if nothing else, and some pie, maybe if my diabetes numbers let me. But our place is a great place to do business, and it's a great staff. They're very friendly and they're very prompt and professional. So, Our Place Restaurant. Now you can go to Wild Cigar and Culture over at Standard. It's a good place also to do business in the afternoon or something like that. Happy hour. They have a conference room. You could set up a meeting there. They have a patio area. You could set up a meeting out there. Get you smoke, get you to drink at the bar. If you want to watch a little football, they always have it on. If again, I stress it's not a sports bar, but it's a quiet place to watch a ball game, and it's a good place just to relax. It's not loud and hammering you with loud rock and roll, but nice, easy listening jazz. Anyway, Wild Cigar and Culture over at the Standard. Thank you also to Gayla. Oh gosh, I forgot Local Life. Sorry, Tiffany. Sorry. I need to get her on the show, but she really is busy. It's hard to get a good date with her, because, so to speak, because it's she just got lots going on. With all her various projects. This magazine, one in college, one in high school, newly married. My goodness. Local Life magazine will be out next week. It's always great to put your advertisements in there because you'll get 30,000 homes receiving. Plus, a lot of businesses have it. I picked up my last copy over at Our Place. And I've seen it in several other places around town. Also, localliftx.com will have the webpage for current things going on. So check out Local Life magazine. Now we could talk about Gala and Southern Jim. Right now, Robin's working. Well, no, next week she will be. I bet that's a better way to put it. Next week she'll be working. She's working there starting next week for more hours. She's already been working there in the summer. But Southern Gem, fine jewelry and gemstones. It's a great place to buy a Christmas gift. I mean, Christmas is coming, less than 3 months now, and they have inventory, they have cleaning, they have repairs. So if you want to repair something for somebody as a gift, it's a great place to do business with her because she knows what she's doing. She's a licensed jeweler, not just selling jewelry. So she knows her trade. And so Southern Gem on the top of the Windmiller building. Also, Hotworks. Now, Michelle asked me to put in a little ad real quick for her. I'm going to just read it, what she sent me, because I don't want to mess it up too much. But basically, she has something that, I hit the wrong one. It's on a Facebook page. Not Facebook page. Here it is. Hotworks is having a promotion to celebrate the Cowboys win last night, which I was very skeptical of, by the way, and I got a lot of abuse for my skepticism. So when they win, the 48 hours after that, post-win, which is today and tomorrow, they offer bandwagon bundle for new joins and discounts based on the number of points they scored for existing members. Okay, so go by and see what kind of discounts and membership plans. They scored 23 points last night. So based on the number of points they scored for existing members, go by and see the discounts. 23%, almost a quarter off of everything you want there today and tomorrow at Hotworks. The bandwagon bundle for new joins and discounts for the old joins. So check that out over at 731. It's becoming very, very popular, to say the least. A lot of times I have guests on it. They just rave about it. So there you are. Also, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, Melissa Harmon, my agent, 682-804-0534. You'll want to have her check out your insurance. If she can't help you, she'll tell you. If she can help you, she'll tell you. And you'll show you the discounts and the savings you'll get. I saved some money on my home insurance this year. Get the same coverage for a little bit less. So saves me some money, which I could always use. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, 682-804-053, in case you were writing that down. Also, on Thursday, I'm going to have Danette Juster on with Pinnacle Concepts Interior Design. Her number is 303-324-9906. She'll be in the studio Thursday to talk about her background in this and how she came to Texas and her experience as a designer and whatnot. And so check out that show. If you're looking to redesign your home or your business place, she can help you with all of that. Okay, where do we begin? Well, I'm going to start with the economy. First of all, the Biden administration is touting the fact that they have said, in their own words, that this is the fastest growing economy in American history, and that we have never had it so good. In other words, and if you don't believe so, it's just because you're partisan or listens to Fox News or something like that. But the facts of the matter are that we have some significant warning signs on our economy coming, and this approach by Mr. Biden insults me. To tell you the truth, the number one job of any president is to be honest with the American people. And we've had presidents who have failed to do that. And this one is failing to do that now. He's not being honest with us about the true status of our economy. He's only emphasizing all these great things. And if you bring up the negative stuff like Scott Pelley did about 10 days ago in the 60 Minutes interview, he gets all angry. And he's so thin-skinned, and he's always been this way. Even when he was a senator and vice president, anybody ever criticized him in an interview or pushed back on him, he did just see the blood go to his face because he's so angry that somebody has the temerity to refute what I'm saying. But the point is that he said in that interview that inflation only went up an inch. Well, no one looks at it on a month-to-month basis. It's 8.3. That's all we know. The fact it was 8.1 or 8.0 the month before may or may not be significant to you, but no one looks at it on a month-to-month basis, and that's what Pelley said. Also, the fact is this unemployment they talk about, it's record low. Well, we also have record low labor participation rates. We have more people not working of working age than in our history. And I'm not talking about retirees. I'm talking about people that, normally you'd think would have jobs or whatnot, but they just don't because for whatever reason, maybe we've made it too comfortable for them to be unemployed. Maybe people are willing and content to live in the basement of their parents. Maybe they just, they've decided they don't need all this stuff or whatever. But we have more people not working that should be working in our history. That contributes a lot to the unemployment rate. Now, we don't get that information unless you dig through the back pages of the Wall Street Journal or listen to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. But here you're getting the point that the unemployment numbers aren't what they say they are. The fact also the matter is that most of these jobs have been created, have been not full-time jobs. Here's a quote that Mr. Biden is touting lately, did this last week. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which lifted this nation from economic crisis to economic recovery. And every single Republican voted for it. What he really meant to say, by the way, he meant every single Republican voted against it. So even then he misspoke. Every Republican did indeed vote against it, but he said in this quote, and every single Republican voted for it. Mm-mm-mm. But no, that's another thing we don't need to notice is his cognitive state. Nearly 10 million more jobs have been created since I've been president, the highest number of jobs in that period of time of any president in the United States of America, as if there was another one. We have a 3.7 unemployment rate, the lowest in more than 50 years, a record number of new small businesses created, and over 668,000 new manufacturing jobs in America. And then his press secretary, I don't know where they got Karine Jean-Pierre, but she's awful. She's just awful. This is one of the strongest job markets we have seen on record, and so we are seeing, and I've said this before, you've heard this from Brian Deese, who is a Biden administration official, is a transition to a more steady and stable growth, and that's what we're currently seeing in the process of moving this economy into, which I don't know, that's a nice little word salad. But here's the point is that most of those jobs have been created, about 2/3 of them are not full-time jobs. The Department of Labor does not distinguish between what kind of job it is when they count it as a job created. It doesn't in the overall report, it doesn't distinguish between part-time and full-time, and they consider 15 hours or more a full job. We would all consider that part-time. In their idea, it's considered to be a job if it's 15 hours or more a week. Now, a lot of these jobs are also second jobs for a lot of people. Again, the employment participation rate's at an all-time low. And so where are these new jobs, new hires coming from are people that already have jobs. They're working two jobs. And the Department of Labor does track all this, and you could find all this very easily. This is not what's being put out there, and the headlines in the New York Times or the Washington Post or It's not something that you're going to hear on the talk shows. They're just going to give you a round number, 3.7. You go, oh, my stars, we're doing good. And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people working two jobs. We got a lot of people that were on retirement that are part of this job increase because they had to go back to work. And the thing about it is, those aren't counted as new jobs. When a retiree goes to work, back to work, it's not counted. It's part of the labor force. So a lot of these jobs are being taken over by people already working. Now, this isn't hidden from the American people in the Department of Labor reports, but it's on the back pages. And we're not going to grind through all that unless you're a nerd like myself or whatever, or you read the Wall Street Journal, which usually does a good job of bringing this to light. But the point that this is why I get so angry, because we are not doing great with jobs. We have a lot of unfilled jobs because a lot of people aren't working. And when they talk about all these new jobs are being created, they're trying to tell you it's because the American Rescue Plan caused that. What the American Rescue Plan caused was inflation. Every economist, left and right, Democrat and Republican, have said one of the major catalysts of this inflation was the massive increase in money that these COVID plans, not just the last one, but all of them, have put into the system. About $6 trillion in new money been put into the system and added to the debt. And so what the American Rescue Plan did is it caused inflation, which they had to pass what they erroneously called the Inflation Reduction Act last July, thanks to the wobbly Joe Manchin. And most economists said it's not hardly even touch inflation. Again, and we're not talking about partisan economists you'll find on Breitbart or some of these right-wing publications. We're talking about mainstream publications, Times, Post, and Journal. That's where the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal is where I draw a lot of my facts, if you will, and a lot of my commentary I get from various websites. Dispatch and New Republic get a lot of reference, and I'm referring to some of that right now. But the point is that if you read the articles, even those publications are saying the Inflation Reduction Act isn't going to touch inflation. It was just a nice euphemistic name. And again, I'll keep going back to my thesis of this show, and that is quit talking to me like I don't know any better. I know that plan isn't going to help inflation, so don't call it that. Don't tell me that all these jobs being created when I know with my own two eyes, my beady, bloodshot eyes, and I read the papers and to verify it as well, that some of these jobs are part-time and some are being people already have jobs, and because of inflation and because of other economic distress, they have to work these extra jobs. And so there you are. That's what really is kind of driving me nuts. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of warning signs that are out there flashing, and one is energy costs. The Biden administration is pumping its chest out like it did something about lower gas prices. The irony of that is staggering to me because the Biden administration has done their dead level best to destroy fossil fuel industries. They have backtracked on every commitment they've ever made to Joe Manchin or otherwise about expanding permits to drill. They have done more to restrict drilling and public lands in any administration in history, by far. Yet they're bragging about lower gas prices. 2 months ago, they were complaining about Putin. Well, what happened to the Putin price hike? Well, oil prices are tumbling, not because of progress in the Ukraine or we're putting out more supply and all this other business. The number one reason that oil prices are dropping and thus gas prices are is we're driving less. Lowering gas prices is a recessionary sign. Okay? I'll say that very clearly. When gas prices start going lower and lower and lower, it's a big red flashing signal that a recession's coming. And that's not me saying it, it's a lot of people saying it, but it's you look at the lowest gas prices we've had in the last 20 years, it was right after the 2008 crash. And our economy just was ground to a halt almost. Also, same thing with COVID. And so every time the gas prices drop this dramatically, it's a sign that we are buckling up for a recession because we we know what's coming and we're trying to conserve whatever we can. Second of all is that we have tapped our strategic petroleum reserve down to its lowest level since 1985. when we were in the midst of all these oil crises with the Middle East. So if and when we try to refill that reserve, it's going to cause prices to jump through the roof again. Second, but that's not really what I'm even talking about. This article talks about wait till the winter comes. Electricity is costing more and more and more. That is not being addressed by the Biden administration whatsoever, because they know it's a bad subject. And I promise you, what's going to happen starting in about November and December when the winter sets in up north. They do most of their heating through natural gas. Well, we have a very, very limited capacity of getting that gas to them because Mr. Biden won't allow pipelines like Keystone. But the other was not just for oil, but for natural gas. We buy natural gas from foreign sources not because they have more of it than we do. It's because it costs less for them to ship it to us to New Jersey or Pennsylvania than it would be for us to drive it up there to Texas, from Texas. That's no joke. It costs more to ship natural gas from here to Pennsylvania than it is to bring it in from foreign sources. And so that's why we import so much energy still. We have all the energy we need to be self-sufficient. We just don't have the means of getting it anywhere because of all the restrictions placed on its transport, including no pipelines being built, including no refineries being built. We rely strictly on truck and train, which is a very polluting and expensive and time-consuming method of getting it up there. So to get the kind of natural gas and quantity that Philadelphia will need, or New York City or Newark will need, they'll probably have to go to foreign sources again. What's the number one source of natural gas outside the United States? You guessed it, our buddy Vladimir Putin. And by the way, that sanction against Russian gas is not working. They had record profits last month in the Russian gas industry. Just want to throw that out there. But the electricity is going to go through the roof. They're saying that basically right now, I'm going to read it just straight from the article so I don't mess it up too much. Because of the rising natural gas prices, the Southwest region has the lowest forecast wholesale prices in 2022, averaging $69 per megawatt hour, which is up 25% from last year. So down here in Texas, our heating bill should be about 25% higher because of the expense. Okay. The highest forecast wholesale prices are more than $100 megawatt hour in New England, which is up 96%. And New England up 124% in New York. So we're talking about over doubling the energy costs in this winter. And when you're buying energy just to keep the house warm enough to survive in, you ain't buying much else. Okay. So the energy costs are going to be an issue. And they're trying to focus it strictly on gasoline or diesel. I don't have to tell you what happened to our electric bills this summer. Now, yeah, we had a really hot summer and our bills normally go up, but they went up a lot because the price of energy was higher, not just our usage of it, but also the cost of it. And it's going to be that way this winter. So get yourself some cordwood or firewood because you're going to need it. Another thing, another flashing sign is housing. That's always been a problem. And I'm not just talking about housing prices. I'm also talking about the availability of housing. There is an article in the New York Times Sunday how people in New York are outraged that old tenement buildings that used to house X number of people are being torn down and being replaced by high-dollar condominiums, which house much fewer people. And the developers all tell you to build in New York, you have to build expensive luxury condominiums to break even. Building affordable housing in New York City is impossible, even with all the grants and whatever else they get. That every time you try to build a building, apartment building in New York City, you're going to lose money. And this has been replicated in San Francisco and in Austin, and it's starting to happen in Dallas and these other places where the only reason that some of these apartments are being built are really expensive, $3,500 a month type, is that's the only way they'll make any money. Why? Because of all the restrictions placed on them for building, but also just the available land near urban centers is being either restricted in its use or otherwise unavailable. Again, I'm going to read from the article. This one is from National Review. The second large-scale problem is housing and land. There's compelling evidence that the U.S. is experiencing a worsening housing shortage that started in the big cities such as New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C., but spread to more and more parts of the country in recent years. By the way, National View and the Atlantic, by the way, are the two best sources I get for housing information. Atlantic had a longer article, but this one from the National Review is a bit more succinct, so I liked it. Higher demand and stagnant supply for housing mean that home sale prices and rents increase, sometimes dramatically. Freddie Mac found that 60% of renters and 24% of homeowners spend more than 30% of their monthly income on housing, and almost half of all respondents are concerned about making housing payments. So it's getting harder and harder to afford even what we have now. What's happening to a lot of renters is they get into a place, and every year rather, the rent goes up faster than their incomes. And as far as houses, we've talked about that at length, and I'll let Shandy address that more next week. But also, the article goes on here in the National Review. It also goes on and talk about the fact that around Austin, Phoenix, Tampa, there's not much available land left that's anywhere close to the urban areas of employment, and that they don't have the infrastructure for it. Let me take a side note here. Some people in our town here in Burleson are really clinched up about some of the infrastructure that's going on, road building and whatever else. And I get annoyed too, and I have to stop and wait and all this. So I'll count myself as annoyed, but I know what it's there for. The people, we as Burleson people need to understand they're coming. And without the infrastructure to accommodate that, it's just going to make our lives more difficult and our drive more difficult and lead to higher incidents of gridlock and things like that. I'm glad the last budget meeting, they passed a budget that will increase our infrastructure building. I'm glad we passed a bond that would increase it. Those are necessary things. These cities aren't doing that, and they're paying the price for it. We know what it's like to drive in Austin. It's almost impossible. Why? Because of such restrictions, and again, a lack of infrastructure. So those are two big warning signs: cost of energy and the cost of housing and the lack of availability. It's getting tougher and tougher. Now, here in Burleson, we still got buildable land. You know, we got this big project going on right on Renfro, right down the street from me. We got that big one that Rocky Bransom's putting together on the west side of town that's going to be close to the Chisholm Trail. We still have the ability to build it, but we need as a community to make sure we have the infrastructure in place to do it. Not just roads, but the plumbing and the electricity and everything else that goes with that. And yes, it will cost us money, but it will make money in the long run with higher tax receipts from taxable property. But we're about to experience a crimp, I guess, the best way to put it, in our driving plans and whatever else. But we can deal with it. Lastly, a strong dollar. This one y'all may not be paying a lot of attention to because, the dollar goes up, it goes down. What does a strong dollar mean? Boom. Getting a message here from somebody talking about his stock market. I want to jump over to stock market, see what it's doing today. Yeah. It is down 235 points a day. This is the lowest the market's been since around 2002 over the 9 months. The headline in the Wall Street Journal is about that we're at the lowest they've been. This 9 months is the lowest our market's been since 9/11. It's the worst month. Well, not the lowest in terms of the Dow Jones, but the Dow Jones was lower then. But we're talking about the worst percentage performance of the first 9 months of a year in 20 years. We've gone from around 35,000 to under 30,000. Say it right, under 30,000 in about 6 months, and that's tough. Back to the matter at hand. Strong dollar. If a dollar is tradable against the pound or the euro or the yen. Most of y'all know this, okay? And the stronger it gets, the more of their currency we can buy. In other words, more of their products we can buy with our currency. But conversely, it makes our stuff more expensive for them. A strong dollar kills our trade balance. Why? Because we could buy stuff that are foreign made cheaper than we could maybe a year ago when the dollar wasn't quite as strong. Conversely, those countries that want to buy from the United States is going to cost them more to do it than it did before. It's almost like we're exporting our inflation, and that's exactly what Jason Furman, who is Obama's chief economist, called it. Where it's the importation of inflation. All right, it's pretty serious. Yesterday, the pound hit the all-time low. I'll read again. This is from the New York Times. Okay. On Monday, the British pound touched a record low against the dollar as investors balked at a government tax cut and spending plan. And China, which tightly controls its currency, fixed the renminbi at its lowest level in 2 years, will take its steps to manage its decline. The Chinese currency doesn't fluctuate freely on the market, but they kind of peg it with ours, and it's at its lowest level it's been in years and years. But here's what happens though. I'm going to read a couple examples of what happens when around the world when the dollar gets really strong. Okay, the article talks about Nigeria and Somalia, where starvation is already an issue. That they buy a lot of food from America, and that food is becoming more and more expensive because against their currencies, the dollar is becoming much stronger. It takes more of the Nigerian and Somalian currency to get the equivalent amount of dollars to buy wheat, corn, etc. And all these countries that owe us money or owe American banks money, they have to pay it back in dollars. 40% of all transactions around the world are done in terms of dollars. The oil markets are priced in terms of dollars. And to do this, to participate in 40% of this, you have to have dollars to do it with. And if it gets harder to access dollars, it drives the prices up for them. That's what a strong dollar will do for you. Now, you don't want a dollar that's too weak, because if you did that, it means all our foreign stuff that we buy would be more expensive, but it would also mean that our stuff would be cheaper overseas. So you do want to weaken the dollar to some degree, but what's causing the strong dollar? The Federal Reserve raising interest rates. The Federal Reserve raising interest rates, and the fact that Europe is expected to have an even worse recession than we are. And so there are a lot of people in Europe, the traders in Europe are trading for American dollars as a hedge against a recession, is a safe place to put their currency. So some Belgian trader who has like €1 million is going to exchange that for dollars because the dollar is more stable right now. But it also is going to take more of his euros to get the equivalent amount of dollars. That €1 million last year at this time would have bought him more dollars than it would today because of the strength of the dollar. And so, but back to the debtor nations, these nations, most of the third world are developing countries that depend upon the American dollar for development, for aid, for loans. And when they repay them to the American banks or to the government, it costs them more because to pay them back, they have to pay them back in dollars, which to acquire those dollars means it's more expensive to them because of the stronger value of it. Here's the mathematical example the Times uses. So consider that a year ago, $100 worth of oil or $100 debt payment costs 1,572 Egyptian pounds a year ago. Today, it would cost 1,950 Egyptian pounds. So it cost the Egyptian almost 25% more to acquire $100 in either product or service. The Korean won. A year ago, it would have $100 would have gotten you 117,655 Korean won, which sounds like a lot, but it isn't. It's $100. Today, how many won would they get? It would cost them to get that $100. How much would a Korean have to pay for it? 143,158 won. So another 20% roughly. Or Nigeria, the naira, which I'm not familiar with that currency. To get $100, it cost you 41,244. Today, it would cost you 43,650. Now, so every country that we deal with, and they need our currency to deal with us, it's costing them more money. And if you're a business that exports to countries, your products are now more expensive on European shelves or Asian shelves. If you're exporting, I don't know, Levi blue jeans, those jeans are going to cost you more in Great Britain than they did 6 months ago. Even if we hadn't changed a dime of the price, their dollar value or pound value is going to make it more expensive. Okay. On the other hand, we're getting a bargain. It says a 12-pound tin of tea from Britain cost us $16.44. Now it's only $13. So you'll save on that. A 50 euro box of Belgian chocolates has gone from 58.50 to 48.32. On and on and on. So if you're competing with European countries in particular, it's making it very difficult to compete. What's causing this dollar to rise? Our interest rates are rising, and people see what's coming, and they want to put their dollars in interest-earning accounts that have greater interest rates. So the Belgian, the Japanese, the Arab trader are going to trade for American dollars because they can get in interest-earning accounts. They can put their money in a safe harbor, so to speak, and it's a hedge against inflation and against recession. And it's killing the rest of the world. We are exporting our inflation. Speaking of the rest of the world, I'm going to shift gears and talk about a segment I saw on Meet the Press. I didn't watch the whole show. I saw it on YouTube, at least as much as I could stand. Had Kamala Harris on it. Kamala Harris, to me, well, I said on the show, I'm not going to say mean things about people. I'm not impressed with her performance as vice president, and I'll leave it at that. But she said some things about our border that I found to be astounding. So, Taylor, run that clip I sent you, please.
Here in Texas, I want to ask you about the border. Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration. But there are still a lot of problems that we are trying to fix, given the deterioration that happened over the last 4 years. We also have to put in place a law and a plan for a pathway for citizenship for the millions of people who are here and are prepared to do what is legally required to gain citizenship. We don't have that in place because people are playing politics in a state like this and in Congress. By the way, you want to talk about bipartisanship on an issue that at one time was a bipartisan issue, both in terms of Republican senators and even presidents.
Feels like another century ago.
But sadly, and then people are playing political gamesmanship with the issue.
Well, here's another way that politics could have been played. Let me ask. Right now, one of our inflationary problems is we don't have enough labor, particularly in the service economy.
You're right.
A solution on immigration reform that increased, particularly lower wage labor, could actually have an impact on lowering inflation. How is that not the motivating force to get something done here?
I do believe that for all reasonable people are motivated and desirous that we would get something done. I think a big part of the problem, though, is that there's been political gamesmanship with this issue. It's suggesting that it's a zero-sum game. If you want to deal with the issue, there are practical solutions, which include creating a pathway to citizenship, fixing a broken immigration system, dealing with the root causes of why people are fleeing their home when most people don't want to leave home. And if they do, it's usually because they're fleeing some harm or they simply can't take care of their basic needs if they stay. There are solutions. And sadly, this has become such a partisan issue instead of something where we work on it together.
All right, I had
agreeing that what we're doing is not working as a nation.
Thank you. A lot to unpack there. First of all, does anybody believe our border is secure? This is from the New York Post, their editorial about it. There's 4 million people that have entered this country illegally since Mr. Biden became president. Now, I'm not really here to address the issue of immigration directly because it is a complex topic, and it's not as black and white as to say let them all in or build the wall. And I'll address that maybe in a show. Maybe in October, I got a couple open dates. What I'm really addressing is her two things: the delusional lie about our border being secure. No one thinks our border is secure. We see that every day. We broke a record in July, which broke a record in June for a number of illegal crossings. 4 million since he became president, and they want to blame Donald Trump. Whatever you want to say about Mr. Trump, the idea that he encouraged illegal immigration is ludicrous. Okay. Ms. Harris lied to us, or lied to herself. I don't know. Is it a lie when you know what you're being lied to? I don't know, but it's not true. And the idea that Mr. Trump is responsible for what's going on now, no serious person can say that. Now, we could dispute about what to do about it, and maybe we'll have that conversation. Maybe I'll get somebody, we'll have that debate. But no serious person is going to say that Mr. Trump is responsible for what's going on now. Second of all, she tried to blame not only Mr. Trump, but also the Republicans in Congress for not being cooperative. I could tell you right now, initiatives that were put out there by George W. Bush that were shot to pieces by the Democrats because they didn't want cheap labor affecting union wages. When Mr. Obama tried to put out something similar, it was a bipartisan refusal to do anything about it. Now everything's hardened to one or the other. So she blames the Republicans. The Democrats have done nothing, zero, about trying to deal with this issue. They don't want to deal with the politics of it, so they'll blame others. And they'll blame the Border Patrol. They falsely accused them of whipping them with horse reins, and the evidence was clear, and it never was retracted. Evidence clear that it never happened, and they never once addressed it again. Never said, well, we're sure sorry about that. Didn't even give it that much. The point, again, is that the Biden administration is failing one of its most basic obligations, border security, and it's failing to be straight and honest with us about it. I'm surprised it hasn't been more of a campaign issue yet. Maybe in October they'll pick up as a campaign issue. I know the economy is pretty good. I know the Democrats want to make it about abortion and climate. The Republicans want to make it about crime and the economy. I'm just surprised immigration hasn't gone up there. Here's other materials. Wall Street Journal reports that the Biden administration is even failing to file the paperwork for 17% of those to be put in the process of having the hearings. What they're doing is the catch and release. They are tagged. They're released to our country, and with the promise that they will return for court hearings. And only 1 in 4 do that, and they know that. The Immigration Service knows that. It isn't like, oh my stars, they didn't show up, but that's a stunner. They know, basically it is a way of allowing a lot of the immigration to not be dealt with through the court system or any other way. Just kind of dissolve into the country, and if you come back, fine. If not, we're not going to come look for you. Also, the Drug Enforcement Agency says smuggling of fentanyl and other deadly drugs is at record levels. We are at record levels of drug importation. Fentanyl in particular, destroying our country. And yet our border is secure. She says that twice. And if it's not secure, it's Trump's fault. It's the Republicans' fault for not passing legislation. It's the Republicans' fault for not, listening to us and our wise plans. They want to make a pathway to citizenship. Is that something we can discuss? Sure. Why don't you fight for it then, Mr. President, Mrs. Vice President, Miss Vice President? I don't know. Fight for it. You never do. You rather blame. She's talking about all the politics. Oh, they play politics with it. Absolutely, they do. The blame game, like you just spent the last 3 minutes doing in that interview. What she is accusing people of doing, playing politics with the issue, is exactly what she just did, is play politics with the issue. Now, we have an election coming up, and I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm really not, because it's your own business. All I could say is that about the voting is that if you don't vote, we can't help you. Okay, if one thing. Now, I think most of y'all that listen to the show will vote, whether you listen to it now or this afternoon or next week or whenever you listen to it. Probably that's when you tune in sometimes. I hope. Also, for all the great guests, like I had Monday. Blah 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 blah. The point is that when I said don't believe your lying eyes, I could also have said don't believe your lying ears. Know the facts for yourself. Now, the misrepresentation of facts is not something Joe Biden invented or Ms. Harris invented. This has gone on in our politics for decades, if not longer. And that's one reason we have such a poor opinion of politicians and politics in general. But that doesn't mean we have to settle for it. Doesn't mean we have to allow it. It doesn't mean we're going to have to accept it. The politics of lying to the American people continues as long as we'll let them do it to us. One of the reasons, among others, I got on this show is I just couldn't take it anymore. And I want to have something to say about it. And I want to give you all something to say about it as well, an opportunity to say something about it. So pass this on to your friends, see what they think, have some conversations, whatnot. And that's all I have to say about that. Now, as far as tomorrow, not yet. Hang on. Taylor. Anyway, Danette Juster is going to be on Thursday. We're going to talk about her business. I got a very full October. Next week, Sabrina will be on with us on Monday, and then Shandy next Thursday. I'll have I'm going to have 3 board members, not board members, I'm sorry, city council members in October. 3 city council members, Victoria, Ronnie, and Rick will all be here in October. So will the mayor. So we got a lot going on next October. So it's been a great September. Appreciate you listening, and I'll see you Thursday.